Okay, well, we may not have.
Alex, can you hear me?
Buzz, I got you. I was just gonna try the same thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Now I'm hearing some stuff in our town of Fortville that's gonna give me a seizure.
I know. Yeah, they've lost a screen in here for some reason, but
We can hear you, Alex.
That sounds like Joe, a little echoey, but I got you.
I'm gonna sign off since I was just trying to make sure it worked on my end here.
But you got your microphone on your computer.
Yeah.
Try to mute yours and see if Alex can hear you.
What's that? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Alex. I just can't hear anybody else, and
Got it. Yeah, I hear you, Tony.
another video is going wonky.
Hello.
Hey, yeah. I think we've got somebody.
That's why Adam makes the big bucks.
So we have Alex too.
Yeah, and I see Buzz is still on mute, but he's talking, and Tony's
I
on.
know.
We can't see you guys, but I can hear you.
She quit. She was like,
Yeah, I can hear you coming out of both.
Is Cheyenne on there?
I don't see Cheyenne on our screen. Just Tony, Buzz, and me.
gotcha. She thought she was gonna zoom in, but maybe.
Technology is great when it works.
Yep, right.
Oh,
They're building was great over there. You like it? Thanks.
That does work.
We're excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the misses out there the other day and.
definitely a horror film.
Yeah, it looks great. She said opinions have been hit or miss, and I said, well, if they're talking about you, you won. So,
Opinions are hit or miss. It's so pretty.
but some people said it, you know, everybody's got
Naysayers.
something to say.
Nah,
That's it. They're all entitled to it.
I think it's got a great pop. It's bright, welcoming.
We can go ahead and start. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:43 and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, it's over here now.
There. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everybody make sure you got your microphones on. Amy, will you call roll, please?
Scott,
Here.
Cheyenne, Ed,
Here.
Art,
Here.
Tony.
He's there, right?
We got you.
Okay. So we do have a quorum. Old business, consider approving the minutes of October 2022. Everyone received them in their packet, so I'll look for a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? Aye, I was absent. New business. Consider adopting a declaratory resolution economic development plan establishing a tax increment financing area for the Ridgeview West Apartments. I just turned it off that call.
All right, can everybody hear me? More or less?
You
Testing.
get a cool microphone.
All right, well, this is what we got for now.
We have you out here in Zoom land, Adam.
Thank you. All right, so for this particular item, if you recall, there was in concept a tax abatement that was approved by the town council based in part on your recommendation for the Ridgeview West Apartments. This is the project, the 80-unit project that's split between two different buildings. Each have 40 units, of course. And so this particular piece of property, as we discussed at a prior meeting, is not in a TIF district. And so rather than extending the Main Street, Broadway TIF district, it's easier to just go ahead and create a brand new TIF district. So what you're being asked today is to adopt what's called a declaratory resolution and the economic development plan that would be the first part in the process to establish this district. There are a few other steps that need to occur, but this is the first step in the process. And the resolution also outlines the economic development plan that's required to be a part of it. And then it shows the geographic location of the TIF district. It includes the entire Spinner property, does not include the existing Ridgeview West Apartments, since those apartments were not being rehabilitated as part of the program. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those. I know Mr. Ritter is here. And Alex, of course, is on the Zoom call.
The cost of the development is being absorbed by the developer, correct?
the cost of creating this.
Yes.
Correct.
Does anyone else on the committee have a question?
This does not include the old apartments of this that's owned by the same people.
Correct. Does not.
Is there a limit to how many TIFs we can have, or is it just the amount of income that can be generated?
I don't believe there is any limit. I'm not aware of any. I know it's common in other municipalities to have multiple districts throughout the whole jurisdiction for different projects.
Sure, I just want to make sure, because this isn't really located next to anything else that would ever be included in a TIF. So if we're, if there's any per capita requirements or rules about X amount of TIF districts I want to make sure that this wasn't.
No.
Is there any reason why the old apartments aren't included? They're owned by the same organization, is why I asked.
They're already generating revenue.
Yeah, I don't believe that they would generate any revenue. Or would they, Alex?
Okay.
No, you're right, Adam. Ed, the in a nutshell, the reason is TIF districts are typically created in areas where you're going to have new development, either blank ground, like what we're talking about now, that you're going to have a dramatic increase in the assessed value because of the new construction. Or another example would be like Genesis, when they have added on, or even Thursday's Pool, when they have added on and done new expansions and additions, then that adds to the assessed value of that area. So even though the old apartments, the owner has been making some improvements there, those types of improvements aren't what count towards increasing the TIF revenue. And so there's no reason to create a TIF district there that wouldn't serve any purpose.
The residential property that's already there, do we have to move that out of or does it ever fall into the tax increment with this new?
I think that it is just for the property that the development's going to happen. Also, there are communities that, and Buzz dropped off, and he can speak much more intelligently about this than I can. But generally speaking, residential TIF, and not talking multifamily, but just single family residential TIF districts, and Adam knows about this too and can elaborate if you'd like. They typically do not generate the type of increment and benefit to the town that warrants going through the process. There are towns that do it and cities that do it, but really multifamily and then especially commercial industrial areas are where cities and towns are going to really realize the benefits of the TIF statute. So if we have some residential single family that is in this district, no harm, no foul. Town's not going to benefit. It's not going to affect their taxes. No reason to redraw maps, but the benefit to the town is going to come from this new development that we're talking about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'm looking for a motion.
Will this have a resolution number?
Yeah, it would just be about 2022-11A.
11A.
Just a quick question before there's a motion. Is the timetable and checklist going to be included in this? The adoption of this resolution?
No.
Okay, because the date on the first item is wrong. I just want to make sure.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2022-11A.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, yeah. Okay. Down here,
You get it signed.
everybody but Cheyenne.
Okay, great. Yeah, she's not on there.
Okay, next is to review the completion of exterior improvements to Studio 309. Authorized payment of $18,500 to Circle City Roofing Incorporated under the Façade Repair Program.
All right, so for this particular item, the project at Studio 309, the exterior improvements is finished. And we have included some photos that were provided by the petitioner. So you are simply asked to determine if that is in compliance with the Façade Repair Program and to authorize the clerk treasurer to cut the check for $18,500 to Capital City Roofing.
I'll make a motion to approve the remaining payments to Studio 309.
Circle City Roofing.
Whoever's paying it. To Circle City Roofing.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the payment of $18,500 of Circle City Roofing. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Again, Dave, good work on that. Place looks great. Thank you for attending tonight. And thank you for being the guinea pig.
It looks good. It looks really good.
It turned out good. Glad we could help. The email I sent you about the discussion about this facade program. Do I want to do this under new business under?
Probably under board comments.
Okay, then we'll wait. So we'll move on to review of financial. Any questions, concerns over the financials? If not, I'll be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve the financials as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is approval of invoices. We have two. Somebody named Krohn and Associates.
We're always paying him.
Yeah, those guys. And then Integra Realty.
Those accountants are expensive. I warn you about that.
That's saying something coming from the attorney. Love you, Alex.
That was outside voice.
Did I say that?
He said that.
Did I really? Wow, okay. Adam, what was the Integra Realty resources?
That was for the one moment. That was for the appraisal for 611 East High Street. And that's the the property that's being purchased for the South Madison Boulevard extension. This was the one that I believe went condemnation. Joe's.
Okay.
Done a long time ago, right?
I'm sorry.
This is,
It's
Just
still
a really
working,
late-
it's still working its way through
but this,
the process.
they
Alex
just-
might be
they
able to
performed
comment.
this work. Like,
This isn't one of the new
Oh.
appraisals for the condemnation.
It's a new one,
It's-
11/8/22.
Part of the condemnation, we have to have new appraisals.
I believe that's the situation.
This will not be the last invoice we get for that.
Yeah, and without getting into too much details, we are working on a settlement. We are in settlement negotiations with the property owner, and part of that, we wanted to get an updated appraisal, just in light of the market and what's going on, and so that's why you have this expense.
Yeah, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I will make a motion to approve the two invoices presented. Krohn and Integra.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next on the agenda, public comment. Mr. and Mrs. Public? Any? All right, staff comments. All right, board comments. I do have one. I would like to discuss as far as our facade program, opening up that program retroactive to the year prior. We've had at least one business that did a significant amount of work while we were developing this program. And they did choose to move on, not wait for the program, which was probably a smart on their part, since it took us a little while to develop. But they have done some, and I only know of the one, there may be others, but I'd like this committee to consider going back to the year prior and considering some of those that did the improvements without the knowledge of this program. I feel like they should benefit from it as well. They just happened to do it before we came up with the idea. But I would only like to go back a year.
so what would that date be?
Huh?
What would that date be that we're gonna?
Well, we started it this year, right? In 2022. So we would open it up for facade improvements that were done in 2021.
Okay, January 21.
Yes. For the calendar year 2021.
Okay.
And we would open it up to, if you're in agreement with my suggestion. Again, I don't know how many people did facade improvements in that area, but we've got plenty of funds, and I just think it's a good idea to give them the opportunity to present their plans and their work for our consideration.
So they'll meet the same criteria as we got in place now.
Correct.
Well-
Except the work's already going to be done.
Yeah, and we didn't have the other concern too would be the 3 invoice requirement that we've made the new applicants go through. There wasn't a bidding process. There wasn't a time for us to take and, take an accumulative amount of those.
Right.
And factor that.
I would have to say that the due diligence was done already by the person doing the work, not knowing that they were going to get any assistance from the town. And the work is done. We can see the invoices. We can see what's done. If you don't want, if the entire group doesn't want to commit to it, you don't have to. We don't have to do this. It's just my suggestion.
Maybe one way to address that concern about the not having the 3 invoices and comparing and making sure that the cost of the work was reasonable, the contractors, you could put that on anyone that wanted to avail themselves of this opportunity to get a retroactive application, to get an affidavit or something from another contractor stating that, yeah, based on their experience in the marketplace and what was going on, that these costs seem in line and were reasonable, or they were 10 or 20% higher or lower, so that you could at least have something for the RDC to consider in paper from an industry professional that would, it's not the same thing as real time moving forward, but would give you that analysis in a in a looking back fashion. Just an idea.
Another thought that comes to mind is, if they did that, so these specific examples were done in 21. I mean, I try not to go down a rabbit hole, but that's where my mind goes, right? I mean, if they borrowed money, the cost of borrowing money in 21 was far less than what it is now. In my mind, just from a first heard and a first thought, I feel like there's probably a lot of other rabbit hole trails that we could go down about, well, you know, what was the, because then we go, what was the, I mean, it's opportunity cost, right? Can we even pay an individual? Because I know right now we have to pay the contractor, but since those debts have been settled, can we pay an individual directly?
That's up to us. Is that correct, Alex?
I'd say it'd be, I think we could get there, reimbursing them for their construction cost. I mean, that's an accounting action. I mean, yes, I think that we could get there.
Because we're gonna ask them to produce invoices and confirmation that those invoices were paid.
Right.
That would be my expectation, is that we're not just taking their word that all this work was done. We're gonna, just like we've asked Dave to do for 309, is we've seen the work is done. We're not paying him directly. We're paying the contractor, but in this case, we would see canceled checks, we would see invoices, and when the work is already done. I don't want to open up any other rabbit holes. That's why I think we just opened up to 2021. Work completed on a facade that meets all the other requirements of the program, and we don't deviate from that.
So Hart, if I understood you properly, that you're saying that if someone applies with this new restrictions here, you're wanting another contractor to get an estimate of what was done and compare the two?
I think Scott proposed that idea, but I you know, my thing is,
Well, we can't do it. We can't get a
Can't go
current
retroactive,
quote
yeah.
because we're going back a year and a half or more. And material, labor cost, everything is, it has been impacted by inflation and all the factors. The lumber shortage, I mean, some of that lumber has come down. I don't know what their materials expenses were for some of these projects, but some material costs have come down from being absorbently crazy, but the bottom line was intended to be very simple, that we just open it up for the people that did the work without any presumption of getting any money back and doing it on their own. And I know one business made some pretty significant improvements. And it just, based on what they had, it made downtown look a little better.
So how do we know when they submit all their receipts that this was actually done?
They're gonna have to produce canceled checks showing that what they paid for it.
But,
But
well,
I mean, before and after photos, I'm sure.
And
It's,
those are in place. I'm confident of that.
yeah, I mean,
It is, I will say, in addition to the things that Hart brings up, and it is a good question as I'm thinking through here about the reimbursement directly to person, the program wasn't in place, but Scott and I had talked about this over email. It does invite someone that you're talking about, or just the proposal on the table is just 2021, but I'm sure there were projects done in 2020 or 2019 or 2018, and how far back does it go? You know, there's always someone that's going to have done something before a program or a law or something was in place. And you know, sometimes timing just doesn't work in your favor, but that is, and Scott and I, like I said, over email have talked about this, but you know, I think that there is a risk of inviting anyone who did anything to their building in 2020 or 2019 to say, hey, what about me? You know, you guys had the TIF funds at that time. We had, you know, you didn't have the program, but let's go back and check that out. So just something to consider.
I mean, you have to create a cutoff. And
sorry.
go ahead.
In 2021, though, could they not have applied for the Stellar Facade program? Because that was in place. So there was a facade program available in 2021.
In this,
In addition to Okra too.
wasn't that application for that in 2020? Yeah. Because I don't,
Stellar Award was in December 28th. And I think probably 2019 is when it started seeking business owners that wanted to participate. And Mozzie is like everybody else on Main Street was afforded the opportunity to participate in the program.
so. Just like with Fox Garden, they almost didn't participate during the COVID time for a lack of funding and a concern over the cost of funding. But he managed to come up with the $500 or whatever it was at the time. And no one else did. So, so I don't know if you hold that against him or not, but I think the business I'm talking about, which, as you say, it's Mozzie's. They came in afterwards and they've paid for it all themselves. And there is no expectation that this is going to be approved by us. And I was not approached and asked about it. This is solely my idea. So there is no expectation or implication of a benefit. I just thought, that's somebody who really stepped up and did a lot of work, and we have the ability to go back and help them. Which, if you bring the Stellar project into it, I don't know that where they were at the time with funding or whatever, but if there's too many holes in it, we don't have to do it. I just wanted to bring it up for consideration.
I worry about, to the Stellar point and Fox Garden, the barrier to entry to that was very low with that, $500. And I mean, there's been, relative to what the town in partnership with Greenfield put into this. I mean, there was far more weight that was carried by the municipalities. And,
But it makes you wonder why somebody didn't participate if the funding was only $500.
yeah, and that's kind of where my point, right? Because then we could go back to Taxman, Taxman and that development has brought they've been a great partner to the town and development's brought a lot of new business here, a lot of new folks. To Alex's point, how far back do we go? I mean,
And I don't disagree with that at all. My proposal and my discussion is 2021. We don't have to do any of it. We can leave it from when the program started and just keep going from here. If that's where everybody wants to go. I'm good either way.
Is there a possibility that we leave it the way it is, and Mossie's could come in here and ask for us to help them?
No, the program doesn't allow for that at this point. You have to go through the process that Dave helped us develop.
Yeah. Right.
So it's, they can't come back from the dead, so to speak, and start asking for that funding.
so is there one business that we know of that? Because I'm trying to roll through my head here of improvements that were there. I mean, I guess another large question is how big is the demand, right? Is there one? Is it Mozzie's? Is it 5 or 6 others?
To my knowledge, the only one that did any major facade improvements in 21 was Mozzie's. Can you think of anything, Joe?
So then that leads, to the next concern of, do we do it for Mozzie's, and then what the optics of that would be, having that been the only one that qualified in 21 for us to retroactively go back to 21. I think that creates new optics issues there.
Right. Ken, do you have a comment?
Well, if I remember, there's this time period that you signed up for the program.
For the Stellar?
It wasn't, I think it was just certain time to sign up.
Correct, but
I think thinking of remodeling, then actually you decided you want to do like.
and that could be. I mean, that's,
I remember.
yeah, and that very well could be. There was a time window, but each business was contacted. And right. Right. And if it's, if the rabbit holes or optics or the view of the whole program or stepping back for one or two businesses just doesn't sit right with everybody, then we can just move on. I wanted to bring it up. And that's why we're a group, because it's not one person's decision, it's all of us to discuss and for all of us to decide. So,
I would say where I'm at on this is with this being first heard of this, is that, I would like the opportunity to think about it more.
I'll give you 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding.
But I also, I'm not one to just say no, right? I'd like to run down every opportunity. So,
Let's talk about it at the next meeting.
well, with that, is it possible that Mozzie's could get us, a memorandum that explains the scope of work, what it's, what it took for them, and maybe a reason why they deferred stellar opportunities. I think that would probably help me come to a better decision.
Is there gonna be answers in there that are gonna soothe your concerns about optics and rabbit holes?
I think the big one again is
The stellar?
with the deferred stellar. The cost, right? Because we're looking at a blank check right now. I mean, obviously, it's it's down to whatever we decided to allocate, but it's not optics, it's not rabbit holes, it's the interest of fairness. Mr. Jones here, we made him, go through all kinds of things, and if Mozzie's wants to give us, something that explains, what they've done, how they did it, for us to then review.
Sure,
But
that wouldn't be a problem, I can ask, but. Tanya?
I just learned, Andy would never ask for anything, not that type. So this would be more a gift to him, I would say. Because he wouldn't come to the town and ask them to do this after the fact. I think it's Scott's noticed it, I've noticed it, that he did this before we actually set up this Façade program on his own. And he should, he's been here for a long time. So I feel like we should at least have the opportunity to. He probably will turn you down. I'll be surprised if he'll get on board with it, but I think that it would be a nice gesture just to offer it to him.
Well, I'll get with him and get your questions answered. I haven't heard much from either of you two.
I'm comfortable with what we've talked about. I think it'd be a good idea to address it at our next meeting.
Okay.
I think I agree with tabling at this point. My concern, if we're going to talk about optics, is approaching the one business that we're talking about, asking them for all of this information in order to change our rules to add it for, like, essentially, if you give us this information and then now we're going to add this program for you versus we're going to, I think, yeah, I believe are the only ones that would qualify, but I don't also want it to be like, oh, maybe someone else did do something.
But
that
what,
I don't-
that's why my question is opening it for 2021, because if we're missing someone hears about it, comes to us and says, hey, I did this in 21. All right. Bring us information.
Yeah, and I mean,
This just happens to be
Yeah.
two doors down from my office. I watched the work be done. I watched the end result of it.
and it looks great. Yeah, I mean, like, it needed to be done and it looks, yeah, I
It
am.
was a significant amount of work, and a
Yeah.
significant improvement to
Yeah.
the look of that section of Main Street. So I will get with him and get some of that information. Can we put it on next agenda for next month?
Yeah, and the only other thing I think is, nothing.
Okay, then we'll just leave it at that. Any other board comments? I'll look for a motion to adjourn, 7:17.
Was you gonna discuss the RDC on VFW?
No.
Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
a second.
We're adjourned.
I
I didn't ask him. Did you pass that signature?
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. He's really just out there.
But just,